Hey guys, it's Merrick, and I've got another gameplay commentary for you here today. In this one, I'm going to be playing Planetside 2 on TR with the Butcher. I'm going to apologize in advance because this video, due to some terrible error, doesn't actually have audio. It's a very good session nonetheless, so I still want to include it, but I didn't really notice until after it already started voicing over that it didn't have any audio. I was listening to something else while I was just cutting it up and adding the voiceover, and then when I went back to review, I realized it's fucking quiet. So sorry about that, guys. The Butcher can be amazing for point hold because it's got 250 million bullets, so as such, I am running extended mag and high velocity. Outside of that, I'm running everything else pretty standard with sensor shield as the choice for tonight. Sensor shield's probably not necessary because I'm taking a lot of head-on engagements, but hey, I like not being seen by people on the map, so occasionally it'll get me an extra kill here or there and keep me alive. The thing about sensor shield is you can't really see its impact until you take it off, so you can't judge based on how the game is running how it actually does. It's basically comparing that versus not having it is when you see its real benefits. But that asshole recording Merrick didn't give me enough pre-roll to work with, so we're going to have to jump straight into the game right now as I immediately run into the fight and eat shit. I jump down, check that other doorway, begin to push back inside, and promptly eat shit yet again. So obviously, third time's gotta be the charm, right? Well, not really. I push back into the balcony, still being way too overly aggressive and not learning my lesson. I do manage to trade one, but then as I YOLO at the stairs, I get immediately killed by somebody peeking. Thankfully, a recursion guy picks me up, and then I take a slightly better position as I'm able to start picking off people as they come up these jump pads. The top of the stairs is a very good position, so as I see people running up, I'm able to get a flank on one, clean up the second one at the bottom of the stairs, and from here, I'm getting a little bit more momentum and starting to shift W a little less as I'm now focusing on my aim. Did I say less? I mean, I saw this guy and I immediately started to run after him. But I came to my senses a little bit as somebody else blocked my path, and then I tried to slow down. I take the fight with this guy through a very tight angle, and he makes a very nice shot to take me out. Thankfully, I'm able to get picked up and continue to hold this advantageous position though. This might be a good position, but I can see from how I'm playing that I don't actually have a plan. I've run to point looking for a fight, I found a fight where I didn't know it was going to be and took a few bad deaths, and now that I'm actually hitting confrontation, I'm kinda just sitting here and trying to fight people, but I'm not really keeping a good eye on where they could flank me from, where I need to worry about, nor am I actually trying to gain position. I'm really just sitting here trying to grind people because this is the only thing I have focused on right now. Because of that, I push up overly aggressively and get flanked by a light assault coming from a spawn point they have down below, and I have to run back in yet again. I move a little slower this time, and I actually am watching these jump pads where I'm able to pick up a few successful kills. There's not the massive blue people here that there were at the beginning of the fight, but my frames still feel like absolute dog shit. So I check, and sure enough, I have offended my whole family. Basking in the glory that is lower input lag, I move aggressively looking for a fight, hoping to avenge my bad start to this session. Able to focus a little more, I push down and start to pick some people off of this jump pad, and it occurs to me, if there's so many people bleeding up these jump pads slowly that we actually do not have control of the first floor. So pushing up to the other forward staircase might be a good situation, but it also prompts me getting flanked almost immediately. I decide to hold the balcony because I can see both areas and try to see what I can pick off from here. I also remember telling Stream that I had come into this session working on my burst fire and recoil control because I've been playing too much Tarkov and other shooters and my long range shooting was suboptimal. So taking long fights from here would also force me to work on those mechanics yet again. I see another guy on the far staircase and I take a fight with him. I am able to take him out, and it occurs to me that the pressure seems to be shifting from these back jump pads to the forward stairs. I'm really tempted to move up, but I know that anybody crashing through these back jump pads could show up in force almost immediately, so I'm kind of hesitant to do so. I'm able to catch an infiltrator on the side, but back to the previous thought, if they were to jump all up at once, technically speaking they'd probably just overrun me, but I would at least be able, if I were positioned back here, to bleed them out and get a good return for my trade. So I try to take up a position along this ledge so I can catch some of them as they're coming up the stairs and try to continue to tax them. I don't manage to find anything, and as I try to push onto point, I get there just in time to catch a C4. Running back onto point, we've lost complete control of said point, so I try to stay up on the balcony and pick people off where I can. I can't really seem to find a good solid connection with anybody because they're mostly near cover, and the longer I'm exposed, the more fire I take, making me feel like I need to back off. Thankfully though, there's an infiltrator lurking around that's able to take me out. I get rezzed and turn around right into a nade, and decide, maybe I should run back. I run back, I'm able to pick off somebody who is flanking our outside forces, and it looks like we have a build-up on the balcony, so we might actually be getting a push to come in soon. I commit really hard trying to chase a light assault, and it turns out they have completely occupied said balcony, and now I have to try to deal with that. I wait out this guy peeking and take a res, then I try to swing on a very common angle, but I fuck up and aim too low, then I get aim punched out of it, meaning I miss that fight. Technically speaking, I shouldn't have won that fight anyway because I didn't have shields, but I was a little confident that I'd be fighting somebody that wouldn't be able to take those shots. Unfortunately, they were in proper position and they rotated off at the right time. So I wound up not getting them, and I wound up pushing in slowly afterwards as we get more space, get taken out and traded, and then try to make the push again. This is the biggest fight on the map, and one of the only ones, so while this is not necessarily the kind of fight that favors us, taking this kind of a grind is the only thing that I really have as an option right now. As I'm running back from spawn, I see some light assaults that are actually trying to sneak around and get our router, and if I let that die, this fight completely falls over. Yet again, this is the only thing happening on the map, so I'm not willing to do that just yet. I slowly push in here yet again, trying to pick off what I can, but the thing about this is if I stop in the hallway like this, while I am able to put down pressure, there's not a whole lot of cover, so it would be nice to say that I should breach in all the way, but that would be a much more organized point hold. There's not a whole lot I can do to make the situation better for me besides just take fights and try to get as much as I can out of them. If I had an organized group and an organized push could be made all at once, we could collapse, res walk to somewhere safe, and fight from there. But that's not the case, so I wind up heading off to Nettlemeyer Gardens, where I'm able to pick off people that are trying to set up on the point and make their life really fucking difficult. They don't seem to be reacting to me as a whole yet, so I'm able to keep bleeding them out. I don't want to push up to the close angle, 1 because of the mine there, and 2 because I want to make sure I have a longer angle. The farther you are away from the corner, the more likely you are to see somebody close to the corner first, so the farther I am away from the corner, the more I'm able to cut the angle at my discretion. The problem is I don't actually have any hard cover, but so long as I'm able to keep bleeding them out the way I was, it didn't seem like there was going to be an overabundance of them pushing me at once, and it works out. That's the kind of thing you need to make a call for because there's not a correct play. If I hung close, I would have had more cover had somebody been able to push me, but I wouldn't have had the superior angle if somebody was farther away. I run around for a little bit and I don't see anybody else, and then I see a few of them trickling out from where a Sunder spawn is, and I try to take a fight. I take a tight angle fight because I'm feeling a little good running off some momentum in these last fights. I overestimate my abilities and I commit to a fight I don't need to. I don't rotate off and I die. I promptly get rezzed, turn around, do the exact same thing yet again, and die yet again. However, when I get back up coming out of spawn, they are back on point, so I do what I can to clear out the first few, and then I try to take cover and get angles, trying to see where they're actually positioned so I can make a better decision from there. I see on the minimap there's a bunch of them down along the outside of our L shape, so I take an angle using this max as cover. The max is kind of keeping me safe from this choke point right next to me while I look down that angle. Once I clear out the one person there pretty much, I'm able to start pushing back to point and do the exact same thing as before where I try to lead them out from the angle, taking it from afar so that I can make sure I take individual fights at my discretion. I'm able to clean them off a point for the most part, and as I push up, I take a shot from an angle I'm unfamiliar with. I just rotate off rather than try to fight it. I pick off some people on the left side rather than push that first angle, and because I got shot, as soon as I see this blue guy, he's actually red, I tag him before realizing he's a teammate. Immediately though, I look at the minimap and see that there's a shit ton of blue on the outside angle. I try to go fight them, I overcommit, step out of cover too far, and they have good players in position, and I get taken out. I do manage to get rezzed, I back off, return on a slightly off timing and catch someone off guard, before putting back onto point because I see some blue dots trickling in, managing to pick off one, and then rotating back around just in time to see someone flanking me. However, when I push back up this left side, I don't see anybody, and after a little bit of running around, I actually find them as we're kind of moving towards our Sunderer. I get one for free as he's retreating around the corner from somebody shooting him, and as I continue to push up, I'm trying to get this guy around the corner on the minimap, but I see some shots, I have to stall for those, they're not at me, and I am able to successfully swing this guy, but there's still an influx of blue, so one jumps over the balcony behind me and takes me out. But by the time I get back onto point, I see a massive push of red off the point towards their Sunderer, so it looks like this fight might slowly be coming to an end. However, as soon as I push up, there's a ton of pressure coming out of their Sunderer, as if both teams have agreed simultaneously this is where the fight is going to be, so I take a position and just try to take the fights where I can. Rather than narrate me shooting at these individuals, I'm going to cover something that I don't often have time to talk about, which is target selection. When you're looking at a handful of enemies and you need to quickly decide which ones to target, the priority is always going to be the ones that are aware of you, the ones that are a threat to you, and then the ones that are in a good position and needs to kill. There was a light assault on the top of that cube that would have been a free kill, but if I took time to aim at him, anybody that peeked that doorway would have just naturally been facing my direction and would have been a threat to me, so I had to make sure to watch for them and clear those guys out first, and just hope that guy up top didn't see me. I had to be ready for him because he was in position that he could react to me, but because he wasn't immediately a threat to me, even though he was in position to be, I had to prioritize him low on the list. TR managed to push those guys all to their Sunderer, and we were able to take out that first Sunderer. As I was running around, I was about to redeploy out, and I saw a second Sunderer come up. but by the time I get over here, it looks like the situation is completely handled, so I just pick up the one kill while I'm standing around, and I just kind of chill trying to figure out what to do next. When I don't see anybody else immediately show up on the fight, whether it be a drop or another Sunderer, I decide to head somewhere else, and we wind up going to Hade's Skydock. As soon as I get there, I see a bunch of dead people, and before I can even get up to cover, there's a handful of purple peeking out of the corner here, and I'm trying to clear them out. I manage to pick off a few, kind of overextend because I look up at this guy in the top and manage to die to someone on the low ground who is hidden by my gun, and I have to run back and try again. Considering how many of them were on top of that rock, I decide to take a shortcut and move around to the side to try to get a better angle. I see a guy on top of that rock yet again, manage to get a pick off on him, and then continue my quest around the side where I run into another person immediately by accident. Thankfully sorting that out, I continue yet again, pushing along the side trying to get a flank, and manage to get us uncorked from the spawn by picking off whatever I can. As I jump down here, I get the glimpse of a purple guy out of my corner of my screen, manage to turn on him while he's not paying attention, and as I move back to point, seems like we actually have been able to break out of spawn and get back to point. I push up to kill somebody that I see on the minimap, and it turns out that he has a buddy. I back off the heal, and then as I go to peek that corner yet again, it turns out there's actually somebody holding a tight angle that I was not aware of, and I just fall over because of my bad positioning and decision making. I was a little far from cover to be just looking around, and I was a little far from cover to be as low health as I was, so definitely was asking for it. I get rezzed, a bunch of red chase him down, and I managed to pick off a light assault that was trying to thread the needle and get past everybody. But it seems like we have this situation under control, so I redeploy over to Castle's Crossing, run onto point, manage to kill one person and trade out, before realizing that this point is also already over, and heading over to Padger Air Station. Despite the population, once I get here I don't actually see a whole lot. I run around for a little while, believing I was baited, and with the only thing that I see so far being a harasser, I'm ready to leave the point. I get my decimator out in case the harasser comes back up to the door, and as I go to redeploy, a purple actually tries to run in the door, is introduced to my decimator, and the actual beginning of this fight begins. Slowly, I run around, get a few different positions as people are trickling in, and I start to bleed them out as best I can. We don't actually have a whole lot of population or spawns here, so even though it's not a high pop fight, I actually am still focusing on getting the kills and trying to be efficient. There's a harasser prowling around outside, and a mag rider on a distant hill that's been spamming, so as opposed to trying to rotate to other points, I just keep floating around this point, clearing out people as they push onto it. I find myself rotating between the upstairs balcony and the downstairs doorways as people are trickling in, trying to deal with them as best I can. I see an infiltrator that actually makes it by, and even though I go upstairs looking for him, I never seem to find him, and while looking around, a light assault flies in the door, takes me out, and we head somewhere else. I got baited to Hade's Skydock where there actually wasn't any enemy pop, and when I come back to Hatcher Air Station, there is a Sunderer by a point that the enemy is taken, so even though we have a hard spawn, I decide to spawn there for the fight. I wind up seeing the Sunderer. I don't want to sit there and kill it, but I try to put some pressure down, wind up instead just running in circles, tagging a bunch of people, and not actually managing to get any kills. Respawning and running back up that hill, I managed to pick off one person moving towards our Sunderer, but after I don't see anything else, I push up a little farther, only to catch somebody over the railing and be out of position. Running it back, and this time getting onto point, I managed to shoot through some allies trying to get some kills as people run in, don't manage to get any kills, and then take up a position on the bottom staircase to thresher them from a slightly off angle. The bottom of the staircase is obviously a very common angle, but if you're not actually expecting a lot of pressure on the point, people don't generally sit down here, and they will more likely be at the top of the stairs. However, it doesn't work out as I manage to whiff my shots, and the second person in hits theirs through the railing with a very nice display, and I have to head back to Nettlemeyer Gardens. My plan is exactly the same as before, slowly push to point, picking off people where I can, taking farther angles if I am able to, and just trying to tax them and bleed them off the point. There's a handful of TR attacking from the eastern entrance to that underside of the tree where I was fighting from before, so I instead just try to loop around the outside, mostly trying to tax some of these blue dots on the side, but I get distracted by some of the ones running in, give my position away, am out of cover, and wind up dying without a very good trade. However, by the time I get back onto point, my team has it, we are simply capping it, and I see a large amount of blue pop pushing back in. I deal with these stragglers that are getting rezzed, and then I slowly maneuver my way into position to try to take on this big blue wave coming in. Considering they have the entire control of this building in front of me, my positioning here is also a little bit forwards, but I feel like this is a good aggressive position to try to keep as much pressure on them as we can, and make sure I'm taxing people out. There's a little bit of a gap between where they are and where the next set of cover is, so even though this is an aggressive position, so long as they can't wrap around the left side of the building and jump over the balcony on me, they have to take a bad fight or an uncovered position to engage me here. While working this corner, I get a little ahead of myself and eventually just start standing in the wide open, not close enough to either corner. I want to be close to this right corner to have the most aggressive angle, but this guy's on top of it and I don't really want to shoot through him. So I stand in kind of the middle of the stairway, and as soon as I go to throw a nade, because there's nobody here pressuring and I'm in a terrible spot, someone is able to swing out and just absolutely murder me. I am able to get rezzed, but after I finish reloading, it seems like TR is trying to crank up the pressure on this angle. Not only are they trying to pressure the building, but they've crossed this little gap of no man's land with no cover here. So now we are actually on the forward side, and there's a little bit less cover on the left side for anybody. The right side has slightly more cover, so I actually walk over that way because I expect most people to be heading over there. There's a small A to G attempt. I throw a rocket with no chance of ever hitting him before I try to get on a good angle to start getting more kills off of us. But no sooner do I get in a good spot for what could be a decent fight, than somebody throws an OS because fucking of course they do. I'm too stubborn to back up, and I don't actually think I'll get far enough away to not be thrown to my death, so I just take a corner, take the death, take the respawn, and actually wind up going back to Hade's Skydock because that fight was, who would have guessed it, completely killed by that OS. As I'm pushing out of spawn, it looks like most of the pressure is on C point, so I set up to try to help them fight that, but no sooner do I do that than we get hit from the flank, and I die for free. I run back, and manage to instantly die yet again. I missed a bunch of shots and kept staying in the fight when I didn't need to, but it doesn't really matter because it was actually an infiltrator that came up behind me that got that kill. I am able to get rezzed, and as we push out this time, I'm able to make a much more solid connection with the enemy. I punish this infiltrator for taking a res because he's an infiltrator. There's a nice bunch of red pushing onto point, and as I push up with them trying to clear out point, I don't see a whole lot. I see one guy in the distance that I throw a nade at because he's running back around a corner, and as I turn to try to deal with some air to ground, the nade actually connects, but there's nobody really left on point. We do find more pressure as we continue to push down though. And we're going to begin bringing this video to a close at 96 kills in 31 minutes. I appreciate those of you that were able to endure this slightly more jank video, and I think my main offense for misplays this video was mostly that I was not dis and re-engaging like I properly should. I took a lot of fights and I just stood there and took the fight, even when I could have disengaged, potentially come back and had a better chance. At a few different points, I tried to highlight things that I did wrong and some potential alternatives that would have been better plays, but those were obviously not all of the things that could have been done differently and or better, but I do hope you guys were able to get something from these videos. And as always, let me know what you do like, let me know what you don't like, let me know what you think so I can improve these videos moving forwards. Thank you guys for your continued support, and I'll see you all next time.